Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor, Heath Sheeran, and the host of this podcast. And I am pumped you're here hanging out with me today. I got my friend Kevin hanging out with me in the background, as you can see on video. But I've got him just hanging out and quiet for a little bit while I get through some very important announcements and some conversation I'd like to have first. Guys, this episode's going to be fun. It's going to be a unique one for you guys, especially if you're in the PNC side, because we're going to be talking about some things that you might not have thought about, and definitely some things you may need to know about. And my man Kevin's going to talk to you about some things, and hopefully we're going to open up some doors for you to be thinking about things a little differently in your agency. Also, guys, this episode is sponsored, as you know, by my good friends over at Canopy Connect. They are your one-click solution to getting the deck pages you need to quote your prospects. And they also have the intake platforms. You know, collecting data this day and age sucks and it's so hard to do, but they make it so much easier with their data intake platform. They make it easier to collect the deck pages. They make it easier to get driver's list and property value, all the things that you need just with one click. So guys, go to usecanopy.com/Heath and make sure you hit the /Heath so you can get your discount. Go ahead and schedule a demo, the whole 9 yards. Guys, also, my newest sponsor in OneFort AI. They are AI for insurance agencies. You could save time and win more commercial PNC by automating submissions, quoting, binding. It's all with AI. OneFort makes your life smarter, faster, and easier by automating workflows. You could do AI-powered quoting and servicing. And finally, you can offload manual work and focus on growing your book. They've already saved insurance agencies over 100,000 hours, and they're just getting started. Guys, make sure you go check them out at onefort.ai and tell them that the mayor sent you. I will have a link down here in the show notes so you can make sure you get your discount there as well. Guys, also my friends over at MAV. You don't need a call center. You just need to use MAV. MAV is the AI-powered insurance expert that engages unlimited leads with friendly text to qualify, quote, and connect your prospects. Traditional call centers just don't work anymore. You hate running a call center. Your clients hate it. Your leads hate it. Launch in days with a fraction of the cost by using MAV. Go to hiremav.com. They manage it all. They have a trained, industry-vetted playbook. They also have your own training manuals you can upload in there to make sure your business is accurately represented. It is a phenomenal platform. I've had so many of you guys reach out to me and say thanks for adding MAV to the program. Check it out, guys. I'm going to slide out of the way now and bring my man in here, Kevin. Jump on in here, Kevin. How you doing, buddy?
So good to be here, Heath. Everything's going great. How are you?
Man, I am good. Okay. I was afraid to butcher it during the intro, but pronounce your last name for the audience.
Deutsch, like German.
There you go. I've just been saying Kevin D, so it just made sense to me. Kind of has like a Beastie Boys or a hip hop vibe to it, so I thought maybe kind of cool just to call you Kevin D, but Deutsch.
That's right.
I like that. So, is your family from somewhere fun? With the Deutsch?
You know, what's interesting is that I'm actually more Greek than German. My dad's side is German and Irish, but my mom's 100% Greek. So I'm actually more Greek than German.
I gotcha.
If you could tell by the look.
I like it. Okay. Well, tell me this real quick before we get into anything. I kind of want to know, I've heard some about you and I've talked to some other friends of mine about you. Do you have just a unique morning routine or something that just like, are you a routine driven person? Do you have a specific routine in the mornings?
I love that question. I am very routine driven. About 3 years ago, I started going to Orange Theory.
Yeah.
And so I wake up at 4:30. Well, I have two alarms set, 4:30 and 4:35 in the morning. I get my Orange Theory routine in at 5, from 5 to 6. I get home, I do any dishes, any straightening up that I need to do. And I'll tell you, this is my time to actually focus because I have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old at home. So this is about the only time in my day that I'm able to do things for me. So Orange Theory is my way to get myself going. And then from that point forward, it is all focus on getting the kids where they need to be and then getting to work. And then we repeat that exercise in the evening. But Yeah, Orange Theory is the way to keep me really balanced in the morning. And what I found is waking up at 4:30 versus 5:30 when I was going to the 6 o'clock class really makes no difference. And I recommend anyone who's listening work out at 5 a.m. because that extra hour that you get in the morning, big difference, and doesn't really make you want to go to bed any earlier at night.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. So within that, is coffee the fuel that gets you rolling in the mornings, or do you have like a lemon water or cold water, or is it coffee fueled, or maybe even an energy drink? What gets you rolling?
Oh, funny you should ask that. I had actually pseudo quit caffeine. I was tired of getting the headaches from not having it, and I didn't want to be stuck having it every single day. So I actually quit caffeine about a month ago, and it has been an amazing transformation. And the energy really, the workout itself gives me the energy. I used to have pre-workout before working out at Orange Theory, so now it's just a banana mainly with water, and I get through the workouts. I'm over that initial jolt that I needed. I previously needed the pre-workout. Now I feel like I've been able to balance that out a bit, but it's made a big difference. I don't have to worry about having caffeine to say, oh, my time is ticking. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't had it yet. I'm in trouble. So caffeine days are over. I'll still have it. I'm not
Right.
totally off of it, but I'm very selective on when I have it because I do not want that caffeine dependency anymore.
Yeah, I did my homework a little bit, and people were telling me that you had some thoughts on that, and I'm trying to get there as well. I've gotten to where I'm almost too addicted to. I shouldn't say addicted; that's a bad word, but to Alani, which is an energy drink that
Yeah.
supposedly is healthy, but it's like a jolt of caffeine first thing because I could tell when I crashed. So I'm trying to wean off of those. But if you looked at my desk right now, I've got 3 Alani cans from the last week, and today I've had a couple. But
No
anyhow,
judgment.
dude, I appreciate that. I'm trying to figure out if I need to make some changes in my routine and whatnot. And I'm a workout in the morning kind of person. I've heard a lot about Orange Theory, and I may look into that a little bit. But talk to me a little bit before we get into anything else. Get me on where you've been. Let's take a walk down memory lane and talk to me about where you've been, what brought you to today. Tell us a little bit about your background a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my story is I graduated from college on a Wednesday with a math and computer science degree, and I started working at SofyOn on a Monday, and 12 years later, here I am as the Chief Growth Officer at SofyOn. And
Whoa,
so,
that's awesome.
so my journey, I wanted to be a math teacher for a few minutes, and then I figured out that that wasn't the right path for me. So I added computer science, and I was trying to figure out, well, what do you do with a math and computer science degree? And I stumbled upon Softion, who focuses in the healthcare space, technology company in healthcare. And my angle was always that I have a technical background, but I don't want to be a software engineer. And all these companies that I was looking at expected me to be a software engineer, and that just wasn't my thing. I can communicate technically because I understand it, but I'm more of a communication focused, business minded person. So it happened to work out at Softion. I got hired as a product manager and focused on one of our smaller parts of the solution. And then over time, I continued to grow and progress project management, client success, a little bit of operations, and now I'm leading our growth segment at Softion. So it's been quite the journey. I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I've been given, but I have a unique perspective because I've been focused solely in healthcare, but it's with my technical background. I have no formal training in healthcare. It was all through my experience at Softion.
Okay, so talk to me, as far as that goes, because I love that you said that and gave me that background a little bit. Because without the formal insurance training and the health insurance background and whatnot, and coming from a growth mindset with your background specifically, what I'm sure in the last 12 years you've seen lots of changes that have come about within this industry, and from either even if you don't know the health insurance industry, you've seen a lot, and especially when it comes to technology and comes to now AI and a lot of things. What have you seen, from your seat? What's really changed in how health insurance is distributed? Really over the last you could say 12 years, but let's even fast forward to the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, I think 12 years is important. 12 to 15 years is important. And the reason why it's important is because that was the start of the Affordable Care Act. And that's really how SofyOn got into the business, was through the Affordable Care Act. And that's really tailored towards individuals going and purchasing their own health insurance, a little bit different than what it was in the past, and making sure that the right protections are in place for these individuals. So that was a market that you saw grow from zero up to about 24 or 25 million at its peak. And so I think where we've focused is mainly in the Affordable Care Act marketplace. And there has been a tremendous shift because now you need to have individuals that are educated on what it is that they're purchasing that's going to be best for them and for their family. And certainly with the political challenges that have come up over that period of time, change in the White House a couple of different times, and different mindsets on how the Affordable Care Act will and will not survive. It is still here today. It is a market. There are certainly other markets where health insurance is viable, but that's probably the biggest shift. When the Affordable Care Act was started, I think everyone had a little bit of a different mindset that health insurance specifically is an individual choice and not something that is made for me. I need to go and do my own homework and choose what's best for me and my family.
So do you guys, from your perspective, when you're right, people, even, a lot of my audience listening is PNC. There's a large segment of PNC agencies that listen, as well as health insurance. But when it comes to that, we've seen that shift as well. And a lot of, more independence and more, people wanting to make their own decisions on that and not being forced to work with a certain company or, the model of, captive. That's, again, a lot of my audience is independent agents.
Yep.
But as far as like with the health insurance side of things, and just to educate us a little bit, and first of all, I'll start with your opinion. Do you think with these more choices and more, individuals wanting to make those decisions without just being told what to do they make those decisions in a better way because they're not as educated on that maybe, or they may not know as much? So, where do they stand on that? Where do you feel like there's still some challenges there?
Well, I think there's still plenty of opportunity there because healthcare is still way too complicated. There is no question about it. So now you're expecting individuals, and many of which are lower income individuals that are looking to get subsidized health insurance, especially in the Affordable Care Act. And so you have people that cannot understand what it is they're enrolling in. So that's a huge barrier in and of itself. And on top of that, the amount of choice that's available is incredibly overwhelming. I'm talking about hundreds of plan options that may be available to a given individual. If you look at Texas in particular, where the market is flooded with different insurance carriers, it is near impossible to make a decision. So that's where you look at things like cost and certain benefits, carrier name that you may be familiar with, but really cost has been the most important factor for many individuals that are searching for and enrolling in plans. But it is the educational aspect around the exchanges has been very, very challenging. And that's why the role of the broker has been so important in the ACA. Our carriers are seeing anywhere from 40% on the low end to upwards of 70 and 80% of their enrollees are broker assisted because they need that support. And so, and they don't also trust some of the tools that are out there. Even if there's decision support and other technology that can be utilized, they're just not ready to be able to do that. And so they're still utilizing brokers significantly in order to get access to this care.
Yeah. And again, going back to, some of the PNC, like as a former agency owner and producer and whatnot, there was a lot of times that as we saw that shift over the last dozen or 15 years of agencies being able to go online and buy their home insurance, their auto insurance, with, Progressive or with Geico and all these commercials, all state, whoever it might be, and go online and buy. But my phone would still ring. These agencies and brokers listening right now, the phones are still ringing and like, hey,
Yep.
I need help with this, or can you add a vehicle, or can you file a claim? And like, at the end of the day, it's like, they'll do it because we're great people in the insurance industry, want to help, but it's so much more difficult because like, you're not my policy holder. I don't have access to your policies. However, I'll help you by helping you tell you what to do. But at the end of the day, the broker is still in high demand. they still want a person to talk to. Even with the evolution of AI, people will go on and type in a question on AI, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you're using. But at the end of the day, they still need a person because they might be afraid of hallucination, or they might be afraid of this or that. So again, I'm glad you said that, and I agree. Obviously my audience does too. But again, how do we marry those two? From obviously there's that huge need for the broker and for the agent and the producer, the CSR, whatever it might be, but also, this individualized need that people have. I want to be able to choose who I work with. I want to be able to choose the plan that I want. And I know there's a lot of things that I've heard out lately I want to get into later with Ichra and some of the other things, but just on that front alone, like, how do you marry those two?
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly a demand for the broker because even it's a trust thing at the end of the day. I don't know that I trust my insurance carrier. I don't know that I trust this portal that's guiding me the right way. What hidden incentives are there in the background? So the broker still plays a very, very critical role to make sure that these individuals are getting enrolled in the right place. And what we've seen too, I mean, we provide white label solutions to carriers, but what we see is a majority of the traffic is still going to healthcare.gov and other private exchanges that are showing all of the plans because you need to be able to compare across different carriers. And like I said, it's just for any individual to go out to one of these sites and compare across 100, 200 different plan options, it's too complex. And like you said, even with AI, there's still additional verification that has to be done through somebody like the broker. And the hope is that the broker has the right tools to be able to effectively support those individuals and get them access to care, and then make it more of a maintenance type routine and not something that needs constant attention and touch. That's the main goal, to make it effective, is help them get enrolled, but then also allow that to just run its course on a monthly basis. Nobody should have to think about this individual getting access to care.
Yeah, well, I do want to bring something up that I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on if you have any. Like, I remember a shift when I first got in. I got in on the employee benefits, life and health side with my father, and got into the PNC side after that. But there was a shift in the way commissions were paid, in the way that brokers and agents, people were paid. As far as, it used to be a percentage of the premium or a percentage of this or that. Then it shifted to a dollar per head thing. And I feel like when that shift happened, maybe and I could be wrong, that none of my listeners, but maybe some of the brokers in general, maybe were less inclined to write more business in that area, or less inclined to service some of that, because the amount of money they were making on that dropped drastically. Did you see a shift in that? Am I stepping on the wrong toes there?
Well, there's been a lot of shifts. Many carriers are paying a per member per month type fee to the brokers, and certain carriers stop paying commissions after a certain period of time for special enrollment period enrollments. And I do have to say, to be fair, there are also some bad actors out there that, especially in the ACA space, that were going and enrolling people and switching them between carriers back and forth to try to get additional commissions. So there is a lot of, and I know CMS had gone down pretty hard on trying to reverse some of that behavior, but there has been definitely some bad actors out there that are injecting fraud into the system because that's how they were incentivized. So there's this balance of, they need to be incentivized appropriately, but then they also need to make sure that there's the right guardrails in place, that it's not causing chaos downstream.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Sorry, but man, my mute button is just not one to unclick for me. So sorry about that. And audience, that's watching, like, oh man, Heath is really screwing up today. But no, I could definitely appreciate where you're coming from there, and I think there's a lot of parallels there across the ecosystem and across the value chain there. And I know you guys see that as well. And I would love to talk to you again, with your title being in the growth area. You guys, there's a lot of similarities in the ecosystem as far as the carrier, the broker, the third party, all the things within the health insurance and even with Ichra coming in and some of the other things going on. As far as not necessarily a comparison, because I know you're not in the P&C side, but has that distribution model, has that ecosystem and value add, like, has that kind of changed over the years as well, as far as the way that whole value chain works with the go ahead.
Well, I think the carriers that have been successful are ones that have invested in their broker distribution
Yeah.
channels. I really believe that the ones that invest in it, they provide the right training and guidance on the products, they build those relationships with these individuals. There's even carriers that when a broker enrolls a member into their plan that they're not affiliated with, they have reporting that they could see that Heath just enrolled somebody into my plan. I want to reach out and establish a relationship with him to see how we can continue to grow together. So I really think the carriers rather that have leaned into these broker relationships are the ones that have been successful. And I'll take it one step further. SofyOn's had a lot of success with the provider-sponsored community-based plans. The model that we've seen that's really effective in the ACA is that community focused of the carrier knowing their members. I'll never forget, there's a carrier that said, I literally see my members when I'm shopping at the grocery store. So that connection between the individual and the broker, that whole community-based local aspect has been very, very powerful. And while it's not to the same scale of the national carriers, those smaller regional plans have really found their way where they can add value by partnering with the brokers and making sure that they're serving their community needs.
Yeah, and I've been introduced to this Ichra, and I want you to explain a little bit of that to the audience who might be listening, because they may not be familiar. And I think I interviewed someone on Ichra not too long ago, but I think that's fascinating use case there, and the traditional model that was in there forever of you get your census, and you go in and you get a quote on your group plan and all of that kind of stuff. That is shifting into a different way. And so is that, again, lack of understanding, maybe an ignorant question, but is that because of this drive towards consumer driven health insurance? Is that kind of driven by that?
Well, there's a number of different factors. And for those that are listening that are not familiar with ICRA, ICRA stands for Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement. And it's really the shift from a defined benefit to a defined contribution from an employer to their employees so that employees can go out and purchase health insurance. Just like I was speaking about through the ACA exchange, now your employer can provide you a monthly contribution amount that you go out to your exchange, whether it's in a state exchange or through the federal exchange, and you enroll in the plan that's going to be best for you and your needs. Back to that local concept, the carrier that you're most familiar with, you're not beholden to the carrier that your company decided to choose, and here's the premium and everything else. Now you have the ability to select your own plan. So we're seeing ICRA, it's been a thing since the first Trump administration, and it had survived through the Biden administration and is now gaining speed once again. But that's an alternative for individuals to get access to care, which is very different from what we've seen traditionally.
It still looks like a group because it's still being payroll deducted. It's still being matched maybe by the employer. But again, you and I could work for the same company, and you may have XYZ company and I have ABC company, but it's still, but again, your rates would be different than my rates, and you could still be able to choose individual or individual plus one or plus family, whatever it might be. But it's just positioned in a way that gives the individual, you or I, employee, so to speak, options to be able to choose what you want.
Precisely. And a lot of the factors that are driving this change is the traditional group rates are far outpacing the individual rates. Now health insurance premiums are going up across the board, make no mistake about it. And there's certain areas that they call more ICRA friendly than others, whereby, once again, the small group rates are far exceeding individual. Other states, not quite up to that same speed yet, but we do expect that at some point, the individual rates, more than likely across the board, are going to be more favorable than the group rates. And so if you're getting a contribution,
which is a
from your
major
employer,
shift.
it is major.
because I can remember in a day of people, I can't afford it on my own. I have to go. And there was a lot of people that would go to work, and I hear this a lot, people that would take a job just to pay for daycare and health insurance for that matter, and it was like, if I don't, I can't afford it. And there was a time that was very true. And so this is a shift that a lot of people listening might not be able to wrap their heads around, because that's wild to think about. An individual plan might be more cost effective than a group.
Well, let's think about it from the employer perspective too. Now you have a set budget every month that you're dedicating to each of your employees. There's no variability there. This is what it is. And by the way, as the employer, I'm out of the business of being in healthcare. I'm focused on whatever my actual business
Right
is
on.
and letting the healthcare decisions be determined by the individual. It's a win all across the board. Now, it's very complex, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of those complexities, but outside of that, there are a lot of really good opportunities both for the employer and the employees.
Well, okay. So when employees are choosing their own plans, where would an advisor fit into that situation?
Yeah, so to give a little bit of a picture of the ICRA ecosystem, you have the employers sitting up in this quadrant here. Then you have what we call ICRA administrators, who are the ones that are actually supporting the employers to define employee classes and set the contribution amounts, and then ultimately meet all of the compliance with noticing and everything else. There's like a whole ICRA administrator component that comes into this. Then there is the carriers, who are the ones that are providing the actual care itself. So the brokers in this case, many of them, as they get educated on ICRA, they're finding these ICRA administrators to partner with to ultimately serve as an advisory consultative role to the employers, but utilizing one of these ICRA administrator platforms that carry all of the ICRA compliance and the noticing and whatever else, so that that connection can be made to the carrier. Because if you think about it, the complexity will increase significantly for the broker if you go from managing your employer to now managing every single one of the employees and saying Heath wants to enroll here, Kevin wants to enroll there. There's a lot of complexity. So that's really the importance of these ICRA administrators and partners that are connecting into the carriers to streamline a lot of that processing.
Jeez. Okay. So, well, that being said, so that person, the ICRA administrator, or the person you bring up, that could be it doesn't have to be a licensed health insurance person or a licensed, PNC only. It could be a PNC agency that it shows up as an advisor type role or a consultant type role, especially in the commercial PNC range. If they've got a client that they do all of their work comp and their general liability and their property and all of their auto, whatever it might be on the commercial side, they could, stand in as an advisor there and have that relationship with them still, and not have to sell anything. They could charge a consulting fee if they wanted to, whatnot, and then push them towards the ICRA model.
Absolutely. Yes, that partnership with the ICRA administrator is key in this space. And there's a lot of complexity with the ICRA administrators because there's pretty much a new one that is starting up every day. There's some consolidation, there's new ones that are popping up. So this is a very nascent market that is continuing to form, and we expect that to continue to happen over the next several months and even years until this market stabilizes quite a bit.
Man, for those that are watching and you're seeing my frustration, normally you can, on this platform, you can hold the space bar and it'll mute and unmute. It's not working for me today. I don't know if my keyboard's jacked or what. So I
I'm gonna have to
apologize.
start filling the air, Heath. That's what I'm gonna have to do.
You're going to have to, but no, I'm kidding. I got a magical mute or a magical edit button, and I could take out all those weird pauses and probably this dialogue too, but who knows? I may just leave it in there for fun. So, how is, I guess, is that something that you feel like could be a future model? Again, talking to both health insurance and PNC. So where's a little gap bridge there between the two, to where maybe some more PNC agencies, or even maybe some financial planners, or maybe some other industries that deal with some of these clients, dive into that ICRA type of situation?
Well, it's a new tool in your tool belt, and ICRA is not going to be for every employer. There's still going to be plenty of purpose for other traditional group models, but when there's not, there is certainly an opportunity for ICRA. And for those that are not health insurance experts, you really aren't in the business of health insurance anymore. Now it's defining the right budget for your employees based on what their needs may be so that they can ultimately go out and purchase their own health insurance. So I'm not saying that the barrier is nothing, but I'm saying that there is an opportunity to work with these ICRA administrator partners to ultimately get into that space and provide more value to your employers. That at the end of the day, everyone who's in this business is looking to add value. And so if the employer is your client, you'd be doing them a disservice if you didn't have the conversation with them about something like ICRA. And that's the biggest thing right now is that we're trying to encourage everybody to learn about this as an option. We're not pushing it to say everybody should be on ICRA, but you need to know that that option exists. And if it's the right option, you need to do what's best for your
Well,
client and their employees.
it gives you another touch point. It gives you another conversation to have with these clients, so that again, you just have another revenue stream maybe in there, or at least another value add to have a conversation with. And I'm real big on trying to provide as many value adds as possible to your clientele. And so, I've talked about in the past, more in relation to the PNC, but I would say altogether, you know, the insurance industry as a whole has been behind just about every industry in technology, and when it comes to, I know fintech's ahead of us, and you've got, banks are ahead of us, and a lot of different, healthcare, a lot of different areas are ahead of us, leaps and bounds when it comes to technology. But I will say, and I blame it on pandemic, that's great. Since pandemic, we've seen a nice little sprint, where we've
Yeah.
kind of caught up there when it comes to technology. I know you're in that space and you've been in there, pre and post pandemic. Tell me what you guys are seeing, or what you're seeing when it comes to that and the adoption of more technology, and whether it's from the individual, from the carrier side, from the broker side, the entire value chain there.
Well, I think you're spot on that healthcare and insurance, that's like the worst possible combination of things when you think of technological advancement. So the combination of those two things is very behind the rest of the world. That said, with COVID, everybody was forced into thinking differently and doing things differently. Now, in the health insurance space, there's the regulatory environment that you need to be really careful about as you introduce new technology, that the right guardrails are in place. So that is always number one in every conversation that we're having as a technology company. We need to make sure that that's table stakes, that the regulatory needs are being met, security and compliance, all of that has to be there. But we're definitely seeing more of a shift towards adopting these technologies, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sustain it. This is getting far too complex. The ecosystem's getting far too complex. There's too many different vendors that are being utilized. It is so out of control at this point that there needs to be a smarter, more efficient way to do things. So that's really the biggest shift that I've seen, is that companies are trying to figure out how to do more with less, and technology is really the only way to do that. And now with AI, there's really no excuse to not go that path down technology, because if you don't, there's no way that you're going to survive it.
So again, you brought up, two of the most polarizing letters in the
Yeah.
industry and in the world right now with AI. And I would imagine AI is probably affecting the health insurance industry in a big way, and even employee benefits and whatnot, just because there's so much that you can do with AI when it comes to that. And I wonder if you guys, from your perspective, are seeing where a lot of people might be confusing AI when it comes to your technology and what you guys are doing with automation versus like a true generative AI or a true
Mhm.
predictive AI. Do you see that confusion there, and how do you guys tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, the term AI has gotten a little bit convoluted over the past several years. When ChatGPT started, then pretty much AI was a commonly used word, and now everybody has their own definition for it. What's interesting, I'll do a quick SofyOn plug for a second is that our CEO has a patent going back to 1997 for the concept of agentic AI before it was called agentic AI. So fortunately, I've been part of an organization that has been deploying these digital robots and digital agents that are conducting these tasks as part of our solution forever. So we've been very familiar with the concept of agentic AI. What I would say is that the health plans now are trying to figure out ways that they can utilize AI to speed up the delivery of the things that they're trying to do and make sure that there's just a better member experience that's being provided, because you can get inundated with the number of inbound requests and data that's being captured. How do you put that to better use? And that's where things like AI can do that analysis much quicker and much more effective to be able to serve an end goal.
So again, being early, and I think that's really cool that, and you caught my attention there that you guys were, setting up and talking about that ahead of time. When did you guys start really kind of introducing that to, was it a kind of a fast forward once you hit, ChatGPT got more popular and generative AI and all that? Or were you guys introducing AI type things and predictive modeling and whatever it might be long prior to that?
This goes way to the beginning of SofyOn's history. And over time, we've continued to deploy more of these digital agents that are carrying out these tasks to the point where now it's a vertically integrated end-to-end solution that's supporting these carriers. So we've been doing that from the very beginning. Where we've shifted our approach now a bit is we have a homegrown LLM that all of our teams are utilizing internally to support new team member onboarding. So when a new team member comes on, they can immediately be productive because they have a co-pilot that could sit next to them that sits on top of our knowledge base. And for anyone that's listening and health insurance carriers, having some form of a co-pilot chatbot type solution that sits on top of your vast amounts of data is something that could be very, very effective. We found that as something to solve for us because we have these thousands of documents that have accumulated over time with different SOPs and other policies and procedures that we've created. Getting access to that information is very difficult. If you don't do that precise search, you're not going to get access to it. So having some form of a co-pilot that you could talk to, like you and I are talking to right now, and get to the right answer, that's been incredibly effective. Now, what the downside of that is, and what the challenge is, if your underlying data is not structured the way it needs to be, and the underlying data is not up to date, then you're going to have bigger problems. So now, not just with us, we're seeing everybody focus on where does my data live, and is my data actionable so that I can layer on something like an LLM or some other form of generative AI.
Oh, dude, now you got me going for a second. Okay, so
Uh-oh.
let's rock into some, I guess giving some thoughts, tips, strategies, ideas, whatever, to the audience as a broad audience of what are some of your Kevin's tips, Kevin's strategies to make sure that data is locked in, that data is clean, that data is able to be used by an LLM, and to be able to be recognized as the type of data they need, whether it's FAQs or maybe it's updated information on their websites and their landing pages. Like what can they be doing right now, whether they're a broker, a carrier, consumer, whatever it might be?
The simplest thing I could say is focus on your institutional knowledge. I think anyone who works at any organization going forward, institutional knowledge is going to be the most important thing that anybody could do. In my role every day, I'm working to make myself obsolete. I want everything that I do, everything that I know to be documented so that it could be referenced by some form of AI to support team members to get to decisions faster. So I would say that anyone who's listening, for yourself and for others, document every last thing that's happening. Don't allow for these verbal conversations to be the only way the communication is occurring. Document it. And by the way, record conversations and use the transcripts to create additional documentation that can then serve as the foundation for a future LLM. We are obsessed with that at SofyOn, is documenting what we know so that we can ultimately automate that function and do it better, smarter, faster, and everything else. So I would just say the simplest approach, document it, and also know where your data is. In
Yeah.
healthcare specifically, that's a big challenge because you have multiple different vendors, different systems that you're utilizing. Do you know where all of your data is stored? Is it centralized enough that you can layer on a form of AI that's going to have complete access to all this information? That would be the second piece. Number one, document. Number two, make sure you actually know where your data lives so that you can have the right access to it.
Okay.
Because that's
So,
easier said than done, especially in healthcare.
right. And so again, as we're talking to the audience as a broad audience here across the value chain of PNC, health, employee benefits, whoever else might be listening, what are some things that right now, some trends that you might be seeing that the broad audience, PNC, health, the whole nine, should know about where we're moving, where the future's going, kind of where are you seeing, whether it's pricing pressures, whether it's more individualized options, whether it's Ichra, whether it's you name it. I would love to hear from you so that even if they're a PNC agent listening and they're talking to their clients, they can at least sound educated. You can take a few notes here, have a few bullets in the chamber to be able to have an intelligent conversation.
Simply
I put you on
stated,
the spot, but get it.
well, no, I appreciate it because I really, this is an important point. Everything is going to personalization. Everything. There is no more broad messaging for everybody. I have unique needs. Heath has unique needs. Everybody listening has unique needs. And with I could talk to something or someone that is able to listen to me and deliver exactly what I need back to me at any given point in time. So everything that you're interacting with, whether it's insurance, whether it's subscriptions that you're a part of, you need to be able to deliver personalized content, personalized recommendations. Everything is personal. So for me, that means something because in health insurance, there is no one size fits all. So I see the future of health insurance being tailored benefits towards a given individual. Right now, that sort of thing exists, but in broad cohorts. Why don't we eventually get to the point that says this is a plan customized specific for Kevin, or this is a plan customized specific for Heath? With AI, everybody across generations at this point, I have my grandmother's using AI, everybody's using it. So there's no excuse at this point. Individuals expect a personalized experience. And with AI, that can be made a reality. You just need to have access to the right data at the right time and in real time. There's no such thing as stale data either. So I'm pretty passionate about what the future is going to look like because I have that expectation now. Because if I could talk to ChatGPT or Claude and it could do it for me right away, everything should be able to do that.
Yeah. So that being said, where should employers and benefit administrators and all that, where do they need to prepare for this preference, towards local plans and, whether it's, again, we talked about ICRA or, maybe it's, something else out there. Like, how could they more dig in to prepare better?
Well, I mean, even for us, we have this platform that we utilize that gives us credits every month to go get a subscription into something that's most meaningful for us. They're not telling me this is your gym membership, go and do it. I want to use Orange Theory, so I'm getting credits towards applying to something like that. It has to be anything that you can share as a benefit should include a choice and an option for that individual, whether it's going to be meaningful for them or whether it won't. That's why I think ICRA is such a popular thing and will continue to gain more popularity because it is putting the full decision on the consumer. Do I want to spend more for health insurance because I have a disabled child at home that needs that care? Or am I a perfectly healthy 20-year-old that barely goes to the doctor and I'm going to get the bare minimum plan so that I don't have any extra costs coming out of my pocket? But that is solely my decision and mine alone to make.
And so one of the last couple of things before we start to wrap up a little bit, our friend that, introduced us had mentioned a stat to me. I'd love for you to dig in for just a minute and tell me, a little bit more on this. She had mentioned to me that nearly 3 in 4 consumers said they would switch to a PSHP if costs were comparable. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so PSHP, provider sponsored health plan, this goes back to where we were earlier with
Yeah.
it being community based. I want to go to a brand that I trust. I want to have insurance that aligns with my provider so that I know that everything is fully integrated and they have my best interest in mind, as opposed to seeing that disconnect between, say, a national carrier and the doctors that I'm seeing and having issues with data being lagged between going to see a doctor and getting prior authorizations and things like that. This whole integrated system approach, we're seeing a lot of success between the provider systems who are starting up provider sponsored health plans and keeping those members within that same cycle because they're incentivized to keep these individuals healthy. They don't want them in the hospital. They want to be able to provide them the right benefits to go and take care of themselves so that they can ultimately manage that members' care journey and not be as reactive and be more proactive. So the whole provider sponsored health plan concept goes back to it's local, it's something that I'm familiar with, it's something that I'm comfortable with, and it's the doctors that I'm seeing. There's not there's less of a gap right now between provider and health insurance. That gap through provider sponsored health plans is closing, and something that I think is important because if you have too many different stakeholders there all trying to be in it for themselves, then you have an issue. But when you have those incentives aligned between the provider and the health plan, then you have an opportunity to deliver real value to the consumer.
And just like in P&C, when we talk about, looking for ways to reduce risk or looking for ways to provide some sort of, training or introduce certain things to, reduce their risk and whatnot. And to be a strategist or an advisor there, you brought up some things, you have brought this up a couple of times, whether it's Orange Theory or, I know, a lot of employers will have things where, they'll have apps that, for your walking, to make sure you get your steps logged. And you've got, if you go get a certain amount of checkups, you get this point system, or if you go to this, or you participate in a softball tournament, or you do this, we're going to see a lot more leaning in on that, and we're going to see a lot more on that. Do you see anything else coming out newer on that? And do you see that as just, again, continuing to evolve?
Yeah, I don't think I could say I see anything newer, but what I'll say is that these employers are mini communities within themselves. And it's even more important now in this fully virtual environment. I know that many people are working in a hybrid capacity. I'd say that the number of people that are going to an office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, is probably non existent at this point. At SofyOn, we're fully remote across the entire country. So how do you keep that culture from being fully in the office until COVID hit to now we have employees across the country? How do you deliver an experience where people feel connected to each other? And so having HR departments really get creative on creating this community, giving the individual power, but also creating a culture where everyone feels connected. That has become a much greater challenge. And fortunately, our HR department does a great job with that, but you have to get very creative to create these environments where people want to continue to participate because that's a retention tool as well. If you don't feel connected to
100%.
the work that you're doing, to your coworkers, why would you stick around? And so that is going to be the wave of the future is how do you and I are sitting here talking between screens right now. We do this all day long. We
Yeah.
have to still feel that form of connection.
1,000%. And I'm so glad I was introduced to you by a friend, and I'm interested in learning, and I've done enough research here and there, but I would love for the audience to know. Tell me about SofyOn. What you guys do exactly. Talk to your audience there as well as and what you want to communicate to them about what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a technology platform who is supporting health insurance carriers across the country, both national and regional, with all of their back office operations from shopping and enrollment to billing and payments to reconciliation, you name it, that's what we're serving in this space. And we really got started with the onset of the Affordable Care Act, and we've continued to grow year over year since. But our main mission is to make healthcare affordable, accessible, and plentiful. And we're fortunate to do that through our health insurance partners and just the position that we play in the industry to we're not a name that you see on billboards. We're mainly working behind the scenes to make that operation more efficient for the carriers across different lines of business. And that's another real opportunity is that in the health insurance space specifically, there's a lot of churn and movement between these different lines of business. You may be in Medicaid one day, and then the rules change and you get redetermined and you're no longer eligible for Medicaid coverage. So now you need to go purchase an ACA marketplace plan. And so on the carrier side, back to this whole personalization concept, the worst possible thing would be John Doe was a Medicaid member. Now he shows up as a marketplace member, and I treat him as if I've never heard of him before. You need to be able to create those connected experiences, and that's what we're doing at SofyOn, is providing a singular platform for health plans to manage all of their books of business, regardless of where they are and where they're coming from.
Well, I think you also brought up, with the experience side of it, if they want to get individual experience and be able to have individual decisions, they want to be treated like an individual, and they want not to be treated by like a number or like a, I don't know, just a name. Like you want to know that they want an individual experience. They want to be treated a certain way and have that customer journey that makes it feel like they are connected to that carrier.
Well, and that's why through platforms like SofyOn, we're able to recognize that individual as they move throughout their journey, whether it be Medicaid to marketplace to they turn 65, now they're Medicare eligible, all of those lines of business in a singular platform so that you're able to fully manage that end-to-end life cycle. That is what we're doing. That's what we're passionate about. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And that's why Ichra is something that's so important to us, because we feel like that's just another way for an individual to get access to care. Back to our mission, making healthcare affordable, accessible, and plentiful. That's how we're doing it.
Yeah, and there's the last. I just said I wasn't going to ask you more questions, but now you got me going. You're talking about technology and your company, and obviously there's a lot. There's no shortage of shiny object syndrome in the insurance industry as a whole, especially with so much going on. What are you seeing as far as the distribution and the ecosystem that you're in, and are you seeing a lot of that? And how would you suggest people to not get caught up with shiny object syndrome and make sure they're intentional in what they purchase, especially with regards to health insurance?
Well, that's a good point. I think you need to, and I don't know if your perspective is from the carrier or your perspective is from the individual, but from the carrier side, the technology vendor side, all of this tech that we're doing, we talk about AI. You can't be focused on the actual AI. You need to be focused on what outcome am I looking to achieve with said AI.
Right.
Make
What's
sure
the
I'm
pain
actually
point I'm
solving.
solving?
I need to make sure I know what problem I'm solving instead of over engineering something that doesn't need to be over engineered. So identify what problem you're solving. And we all say this, but we need to practice it. You need to put the member or the consumer in the middle of that interaction. Everything that you're doing needs to positively be impacting the individual. So just because you're adding new technology and AI does not mean that that experience is going to get better. So you need to be able to measure what that experience is and make sure that the outcome that you're achieving is what you expect to achieve.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we see. I'm going to make a stretch here, but we see companies like yours. We also see, with TripAdvisor or with helping you to choose, different things. People want individualized choices. They want to be able to make decisions. They want people to help them, whether it's loans. They can, with all these different loan companies, you could shop the loans, and you've got, your company that does that with the health insurance plans. You got TripAdvisor that does it there. You've got some different P&C things. If there was anything in your life that's not existent now, but that you could have a platform to help you make a decision, on something, whether it's food, whether it's where you work out, whether it's something in your daily life outside of insurance, what would be something like that you would like to see?
That would
help you make decisions,
okay.
Help you shop around, help you look at different options out there to make a decision on something you do on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, this is a very tough question, but I really think, no, I think one thing that's challenging is that my own healthcare experience, I still don't feel, this is me personally for a
Yeah.
second, I still don't feel I have full control over the healthcare decisions that
Okay.
I'm making. If I go to the doctor, I have no idea what it costs to go see the doctor. I'm not really a consumer in that case, because I'm going to the doctor and this is what they're prescribing me to do. This is a procedure that I have to get here. I have no idea. So I would really love to have a singular place where all of my healthcare data and insights is captured. I have my Whoop band on here. I've got my Apple Watch here. I want one place that has all of that data fully consolidated that can help me make the right decisions about my healthcare. And others may say, well, we have that solution already, but it is so complex that I think we're still a ways from having that be a reality. But I really think
Yeah.
your health, without your health, you've got nothing else. I firmly believe in that. So you have to have your health under control, and having the right data and insights and guidance on that. I use ChatGPT and Claude all the time as my medical advisor, but I would love for there to be a little bit of a better integration with all of my healthcare data and decisions that I'm making on a daily basis,
Love it.
including what I'm eating, because we can all be better with that.
I wish there was a platform out there similar to what you guys do, that could help me make the decision with my wife and I where we go eat every night,
That would be a
where
good
we
one.
go out to eat based on where we've eaten in the past, where she ate yesterday, what we've eaten in the past month, so that decision could be made where I can just call her up and say, honey, we're going here for dinner, and I have to ask her or her have to ask me. I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, it would.
We may need to get on that, Kevin, with your background in
I like it.
technology, and with the AI out there. Good, clean data. We could come up with some ways to help husbands across the world. It'd be great.
I like it.
Brother, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I appreciate you being patient with me and my lack of total understanding of what's going on. And I know the audience learned a lot, and at least if you're not in the health space, you at least have a better knowledge of what's going down, what's out there, some conversations to be had. And maybe you want to look into Ichra. And if you're, interested in that, look into that. And if you're a carrier right now thinking, man, I should really work with Kevin, let me reach out. I'll put his information in the show notes. And so you guys could maybe work with SofyOn. And the website is what, Kevin?
SofyOn.com.
Oh, that's easy. And that's
Yep.
spelled how?
Softheon. Temple of Software.
There you go. And then if they want to reach out to you directly, would that best place be LinkedIn?
Yes, that would be perfect.
Awesome. And that's Kevin Deutsch, Deutsch. So go check him out.
Now, Heath.
Man, I really, again, I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you as well.